Yes, good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. I hope you guys are doing great. Okay, so now I can see that it's working fine, and I can see you guys that you all are on time. That's great. Thank you so much for joining. So, first of all, let me introduce this session to you. We are starting a new series today for modern Indian history, okay, in which we will cover the book Spectrum for modern Indian history, but we will cover this book word to word. Word to word means that we will just avoid the unnecessary information, and the entire part is going to be covered in a very good manner, in a very detailed manner. So it's not a crash course, first of all, it's a detailed course. And here, what is unique about this course? You have so many Spectrum series and modern Indian history series, right? But this time, the newness, the uniqueness is that we will connect the modern Indian history with the world history, and I'll also connect the important dots of ancient and medieval Indian history for you so that you get a good revision also. It's good to interlink the points. So a 360-degree approach is there to cover the modern Indian history. So this is something new which you will be getting in this series. I hope that you like it. And the first chapter is sources. Okay. So let me just tell you that what exactly are we going to cover. First of all, the first chapter is about the sources to study the modern Indian history, in which we will cover archives, official records, unofficial records, public repositories, foreign repositories, poems, paintings, literature, everything. And then we will come to approaches. So, first two chapters of Spectrum would be covered in today's session only. And even I'll try to give you the introduction of the third chapter also, which is about the arrival of Europeans, how Portuguese came to India, and how Dutch, Danes, you know, English, they came here, how the fight started, and then how Britishers got the victory, right? So that introduction is also going to be covered today. So, first of all, if we read the second chapter, is all the, entire content important for us? If we need to read about all the major approaches, see, we will just get a glance of few things, but colonial approach and nationalist approach is very important. Okay, other approaches are not that important, but we will cover it in a very brief manner. So word to word means what? That if something is not important, unnecessary, not required for exam, then we'll just cover it briefly. But whatever is important, that we will cover in detail, word to word. Fine? I hope you got it. Yes, right. Yes, hello guys, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining, guys. Now we are starting. So, see, guys, major approaches is your second chapter. First chapter is sources. Now, let's take an example. You, as an UPSC aspirant, when you decided to study the modern Indian history, what was the first question which came to your mind? Tell me. I can see your comments, okay? You need to tell me that what was the first question came to your mind when you decided to start your preparation and read modern Indian history. Was there something in your mind? Was there any question or doubt? I think you must have thought about the book list, right? That what kind of source I can follow, or what are the sources? What is the book list? What is the roadmap to study this, right? So, similarly, when historians decided to study the modern Indian history, they had to follow some sources. They had to follow few repositories, documents, something like that. So, the most important source is archive. We have many archives. Archives are what? They are written set of documents, historical documents and records. And they were not written to be read in future or discussed in future. They just used to write each and everything. Okay, so we need to discuss archives, public archives, private archives, and foreign repositories. These three types of archives are there. Okay, So first of all, you need to understand what is archive. Okay, who will tell me? We have many archival materials. Okay, so archives are written set of documents, and at that time, for example, let's say when Morley Minto reform came in India, they introduced in 1909. Okay, so just understand it. For an example, Morley Minto reform introduced separate electorate in India, in which they said that they will be giving separate electorate to Muslims, in which the Muslim candidates could be voted by the Muslim population only. So if you just read this Morley Minto reform, or after 10 years when Montagu Chelmsford reform came in India in 1919, if you read it and if you look at those provisions, you may have a different set of approach in your mind. That okay, Morley Minto reform is giving separate electorate to Muslims, not women, not scheduled castes or scheduled tribes. So there can be a question in your mind that if it is only for Muslims, then why Muslims? Then that communalist approach will come to your mind. Okay, and this will become a source for you to read the modern Indian history, right? So these all sources are there. Now the question is, why archives are so important for us and why do we follow it? See, Britishers had a very good habit of writing each and everything and preserving it. Habit of preserving the documents. Do you think that Indians had the same kind of habit, or any Indian ruler used to maintain, do survey and have a record, and it used to be updated on day to day basis? Was there anything like that in ancient and medieval Indian history? No. Few of the rulers started doing it, like the survey used to be there even during the time of Mauryas. But if you talk about the day to day administrative record to be updated and preserved and secured, it was never there in India. We had no habit of preserving the documents. We used to follow an oral tradition. Like if you look at the Vedas in the ancient Indian histories, Vedas were not written initially. They were composed and they were transmitted orally, generation to generation, right? You must have heard that line, Pran jaye par vachan na jaye. So, vachan is very important in India. If you see the Indian tradition or the Orientalist approach, you will be understanding that oral tradition was always important for us. Even today, when we say something, it's a very important promise. Like you said this, so you now need to do it, okay? Because you said it. So, something about what you say is very important. That's why even today we don't have that habit of keeping our documents intact and keeping everything, the paperwork in a very consolidated way. Generally, people don't have this habit of keeping their documents carefully. Sometimes they forget it. Sometimes they keep it somewhere. Why this is there in India? Because we had no habit of preserving the document. But Britishers, when they came here, each and every office had their own official archival record office in which they used to have each and everything written. Like if this report is there, if this committee is formed, then what kind of works are going to be there? What is the budget? And why this budget is there? If it is going to be changed, then why it is getting changed? How many officers are involved? So they used to write each and everything. Now, we have understood that they had a habit of preserving the document. So, three types of archives are there. Okay, so the first source which you need to understand is archives. We have three types of archives. Public. Public archives means government archives. Like we had three presidencies, Madras, Bombay, Bengal. So, all these three presidencies had their own archival records. Okay, so they had their own judicial proceedings, everything. So whatever was there preserved by the government was known as public archive. Then we had private archives. Private letter of individuals, letters shared by governors, by Gandhiji, between Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Indira Gandhi. So many letters and documents were there. So they were private archives, individual records. Then we have foreign repositories like Record Office in London, okay, Record Office in Lahore, or any other museum which is there in any foreign country, which is not there in India. So that will be a foreign archive, foreign record. So these archives are very, very important. I hope you understood. If in one line we need to say or tell that what do you mean by archive, just understand that archives are historical records and written set of documents. Okay, official records. Fine, understood. This is the first source. But let's say you read about the Parliamentary reform, or if you read any archive, these all are official records. Okay, so you may not find the real feeling of common man, like how people used to feel at that time, how Indians were suffering. Was the colonial rule really helpful for Indians? These kind of questions can be there in your mind, right? So at that time, you need to understand that to know the real feeling, you need to go to the unofficial records like literature, poem. Sometimes it is said that literature is like the mirror of society, because you see something in the society and same could be written there in a poem or a literature, right? So that is also very important. Folk music, folk songs, paintings, even travelers who used to come to India. We had so many travelers in India. They used to write their travel accounts. So all those sources are again very important for us. So when these historians, when they do historiography, what do you mean by historiography? Historiography is the study of history, study of different sources, and then making a set of data, then writing it down, or collecting each and every evidence, and then creating the written set of document, which would be known as a history book or a historical document. Okay, so historiography, in which everything is followed, all the important sources are followed. That is something which is very, very important. But we had no habit of historiography in India. Like if you compare it with Chinese historiography, Chinese used to have a kind of habit or a format was there, that whenever a new ruler used to come, that new ruler used to write each and everything about the past ruler. And they had a set of format like introduction, which ruler came, how he ruled, what kind of policies were there, what kind of ethics and morals were followed, why he got defeated, how the rule was ended. So entire rise and fall was discussed. And when the next ruler will come, he will again write about the past ruler. So this format was always followed in the Chinese history. So that's why if you read the Chinese historiography, you'll come to know that each and every point is well discussed, and you may not get confused anywhere. But even today in the ancient history, we are confused on so many dates. Why? We don't know about the end of Harappan civilization. We have no idea that how Harappans were declined. So many types of arguments are there, that it could be a natural disaster or a foreign attack, Aryan invasion. So many theories are there about the decline of Harappans. Why? Like from where Aryans came to India, right? So there are so many questions, like how Alauddin Khilji got died. So many questions are there. We don't have answers because nobody used to write and preserve it. Government never thought about it. And so many dynasties used to rule in India that they never continued it. So that continuity was not maintained. So the best part about these archives during the modern Indian history was that Britishers had continuously maintained it and updated it. It is a very updated record. That's why it's very, very important. Got it? So public, private, and foreign repositories. Fine. So we have first type of source, which is archive or archival materials. In the public archive, we had government records, archives of the government of India, like state governments, Bengal presidency, Madras presidency, Bombay presidency, or any judicial record, any judicial proceeding, committee reports, all those things will come in the public archives. In the private archives, we will have papers, documents by individuals and families. Okay? Not each and every individual is important, not each and every family is important. Only those family members who played a significant role in the development of modern Indian history. Okay? If, let's say, there was a unemployed person who used to exchange letters regularly with his family members, then those letters are not important for you. But each and every letter written by Mahatma Gandhi or Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru is important because they had a significant role in the modern Indian history. Clear? If we talk about the foreign repositories, we had Indian office record in London, we have a record office in Lahore. So these all foreign repositories are there, museums are there. So all those foreign repositories are also sources. I hope this topic is clear. We don't need to read and discuss a lot about this chapter because it's not that important. Okay. But I just wanted to cover each and everything with you point by point. That's why I took these two chapters, sources and approaches, because I never wanted to take any risk and I don't want you to have a feeling of missing out something. Okay. So just to have a good confidence that entire modern Indian history is going to be covered and each and every point would be there. Fine? Okay. There is a question by classic content that how many days will it take to complete the course, ma'am? See, uh, we'll try to cover it within 2-3 weeks. Okay, because like today we covered two chapters. Like first chapter is done. We are coming to the second chapter, which is approaches. This is your chapter number 2. And if you look at your book, these two chapters are not very important. Okay, if you do self study, you can even skip these two chapters by just reading the summary of it. But what I want is that if there is a chapter which is very important, like the Gandhian phase is very important, so there I will invest more time with you because so many questions are coming from the Gandhian era. So there it may take that the Gandhian era will be covered in 1 week. Okay, but we will go chapter wise. So don't get confused. I'll try to complete it within 2-3 weeks and I'll take classes daily, regularly. So just come live on time. If you will be coming live on time, it will give me energy to complete the course as soon as possible. Okay? Any doubts, guys? Okay, great. Now, let's come to the second chapter, which is about the approaches. Okay? So, as I have already discussed with you guys, that we don't need to read about each and every approach. Okay? Each and every approach is not important for us. We just need to read about two most important approaches in detail. First is the colonial approach and second is the nationalist approach. Let's start with the colonial approach. Colonial approach. This approach with the name colonial, with the term colonial comes. First of all, you need to understand what is colonial. Colonial is referred to the British rule in India. Okay. So Britishers made India its colony. So two words are there, colonialism and imperialism. You need to understand the difference between these two words. The imperialism is an ancient term. It is very old. Then colonialism. So like Roman Empire, they had an imperialistic policy. So when imperialism is followed in a country, the rulers or the monarchy, they decide to expand their territory, to conquer more and more neighboring areas. So when you want to spread more, when you want to get more powerful and to get more power and resources, you just spread out and you go beyond the boundaries of your country. That is imperialism. But colonialism is in a very negative sense, because colonialism is directly related to exploitation. Colonialism started after the Industrial Revolution in 18th century, and it was to get the raw material and good market of finished goods. So in the colonialism, you'll see that economic exploitation is going to be there. Okay, it's not just about a rule and dominance. It's not about taking any responsibility or sharing of power. No, it's just about profit and economic exploitation. So colonialism was a new concept which came after industrial revolution. But imperialism was an old concept. It was during the time of ancient history and medieval history. But in modern history, modern Indian history and modern world history, we will talk about colonialism more. Okay? Now, colonial approach is the British approach. Like I gave you the example of Morley Minto reform. Like Morley Minto reform came in India in 1909. In Morley Minto reform, separate electorate was introduced. So let's say they had this document of Morley Minto reform, and when we read this document, there could be different approaches. Let's say there is a female author or a writer, and they think that why women didn't get the separate electorate? Why not? What about the women rights? There is one approach to read this, that why are you giving separate electorate to Muslims only? When you say that separate electorate was given to Muslims, so when any of the author or historian will read it, they may think that Muslims were in minority, so they got the rights. But Christians, Sikhs, and so many other minority groups were also there. They didn't get the right here. So it will be a communalist approach, seeing things through a communal angle. And if, let's say, any person who is a socialist person, he or she may think that in this particular reform, they are trying to just see a clash, which is a clash of classes, capitalist class and communist class. It is a clash between capitalism and socialism. If we talk about the nationalist approach, we understood it as it is a strategy of divide and rule, that they wanted us to fight. They wanted Hindus and Muslims to fight. Britishers wanted to divide India. So it was a part of their divide and rule strategy. But if you read the same Parliamentary reform in the colonial approach, they'll praise it. Britishers will say that, okay, it was right. It was needed at that time because Muslims wanted more representation. They were in minority and we wanted to secure their cultural rights. That's why we gave them separate electorate. Okay. So each and everything can be can have a different perspective. Okay, if there is a half glass of water, you can call it half empty or half full. This is your mindset, that how you think about it. Now the question is, as an UPSC aspirant, which approach is fine for us to follow? Should we have any mindset to read these approaches, or should I get drawn towards one of the approach? See, the answer is no. Understand it in a very unbiased way, okay, and read it in a very unconditional way, like a historian, not like Hindu or Muslim. Otherwise, the regional feeling will come to your mind. This is about the nation, okay? Nation comes first. So, understand it as an Indian. Don't have any regional feeling or religion feeling with you. Be very secular in your approach. Now, if we first talk about the colonial approach, Britishers say that the colonial rule was very important for India. It was great for India. We developed India. and Britishers came to civilize Indians. So they had 3 4 points, like they had their own Orientalist version, Pax Britannica. They had their concept of God, glory, and gold, and they had a theory of social Darwinism, the rule of the fittest. So all these 4 points are important for us. One by one, we will cover it. Let's start with the first one, first approach, which I want to discuss in detail with you. That is colonial approach. Let's discuss this one, colonial approach. Okay. So basically, it focuses on criticism. Criticism of what? Criticism of indigenous society and culture. And it praises the Western culture and values. Okay. So do we have any writers and authors who used to follow it and who thought that this is the right thing to, you know, to follow or to write about? So yes, we had two very, very important writers, James Mill and Vincent Smith. Okay. James Mill and Vincent Smith. These two writers are very, very important for us. Okay. They used to follow this approach. Like if you talk about James Mill, have you ever read that class 8th NCRT? Class 8th history NCRT? In which the first chapter is there, which discusses this approach of modern Indian history. And there you'll see that James Mill divided the Indian history into three parts: Hindu, Muslim, and British. Why? Because ancient history is having more, Hinduism in it. Medieval history is more about Islam, Muslim rulers, and modern history is more about Britishers and their rule. So he divided the Indian history into three sections, and three sections were known as Hindu, Muslim, and British. So according to James Mill, Europeans came to India to civilize Indians, because Indians, they had a very backward culture. Indians used to follow caste system. They used to follow sati system. So Indians were not modern in their approach. The education, the Indian education was also not good. They had no science and scientific and technical advancement in India. So that's why when Britishers came to India, they gave a new light to Indians. A lot of developments were introduced, like railway was introduced, telegram, communication, so many services were there. So if you just think about it, it's right. It is fine that yes, Britishers gave a lot of things to Indians. And we can't deny the fact that they introduced a new set of development. But it was all for their own selfish reasons. They never introduced any mass education to India. They never wanted masses to uplift. They never wanted society to be reformed. Whatever they used to do was a part of their selfish nature. They wanted to convert Indians, Hindus, and Muslims into Christians. So, to increase Christianity, they started their missionary activities. To get more profit, they wanted to control political powers. They wanted power without responsibility. And that's why they introduced dual governance in Bengal. So, if you understand this colonial approach, you need to have a thinking and a clarity that yes, the development was there by Britishers, but that development was for a selfish reason. It was a selfish approach. Okay, so a selfish development was made in India. As I discussed with you, there were 3 4 points which we need to understand when we discuss these, you know, approaches related to the colonial viewpoints. First of all, they had a Orientalist mindset. Okay, understand what is Orientalist. This viewpoint is very important here. The Britishers used to call Indians Oriental, like goods coming from Asia or India were known as Oriental goods. Oriental means traditional, okay, which is Indian in nature, Indian tradition. So they used to say that India is very Orientalist and Indians are very traditional in their approach. They are very backward in their approach. They need to have some modernization in India. And they had this opinion that Britishers brought unity to India because Indians, they used to fight among themselves. So many princes were there, so many rajas and rajwades, and they used to fight among themselves to get power. India could be united because of Britishers only. So Britishers helped Indians to understand the feeling of unity. You can connect it with the world history also. If you'll read about Italy, the unification of Italy, there you'll see that the unification of Italy happened indirectly due to Napoleon. Because when Napoleon started ruling some parts in Italy, he introduced his own Napoleonic code of conduct. So a uniform code of conduct was there in the entire Napoleon empire, and he used to rule with a set of documents, set of rules, jurisdiction was there, and a similar feature of governance was introduced in each and every area. So different states in Italy, they got similar features in the governance, so they were suffering from the same problems, and that's why that Napoleonic code of conduct brought them together. And after the end of Napoleonic rule, Congress of Vienna happened, and then unification of Italy was started. So many leaders were there to initiate that kind of development there. Mazzini, Garibaldi, and so many other leaders came to Italy, and they wanted Italy to be united. It was just a geographical expression, but they made it a nation together. They wanted it to be united and to grow as a supreme power. So similarly, in India also you'll see that when Indians got a set of rule, which was started by Britishers, of course they had their own regulating acts, started with the Government of India Act, and then they made a constitution and things like that. However, the Indian constitution was made by Indians only, but it is very much similar to the Government of India Act of 1935, right? So you can say that the inspiration is coming from the British rule only. So somehow this point is also fine. We can't just deny the fact, okay? But as an UPSC aspirant, as you're preparing for, Indian civil services, so you need to think like a Indian, that yes, exploitation happened to India. And they also say that see, government, when they have a governance on you, they can tax you. So just think like whatever was taken away from India was a part of a tax. Assume it like that and compare it with this feeling. Why you say that Britishers looted you? Sometimes Britishers say this to Indians. So there we say that even if you calculate the amount which you looted is something which is not a justified amount of tax. They literally looted India, right? Okay. So this is the unity point. I hope you understand. Then second is social Darwinism. This theory is again very, very important, which is about the survival of the fittest. So Darwin, when he gave this theory, he never thought that Britishers will use it like it. Darwin just wanted, uh, you know, people to understand the human evolution. If you study anthropology, anthropology is the study of human beings. There you'll know that how human beings evolved and how the survival got started, and how they used to fight against different kind of you know, things going around, the weather, the conditions, and different harshness of the life. So that theory was to make you understand the survival of the fittest in a very natural way. But Britishers used this Darwinism and this theory not in a natural sense, not in a study of human being, not for that, but to ensure that their colonial rule is not getting a negative sense in front of the world, because image is very important. Okay, if you want to be a great power, you need to have a great image. They used to maintain their image always. So this theory of social Darwinism was also there, where English considered themselves superior to the natives, and that's why the fittest to rule. The fourth point is very, very important, which is white men's burden. White men's burden. Britishers used to say that we have a burden, as we are whites, we are Europeans, we are racially more superior. So we have this burden that we need to empower everyone. People living outside or coming from the non Christian world, they are not empowered, they are racially inferior. So we need to make something so that these people also learn the reality of life. They are living like animals, they are so uncivilized, they are not hygienic, the traditions are not fine. There is no development of human value and human consciousness. Only Europeans who are whites and superior racially can help Indians to grow in life and to understand the reality of world. So this is a burden on them. And one more point which they used to say was Pax Britannica. Pax Britannica is what? Pax Britannica is British paramountcy. British paramountcy. The Britishers wanted to be a paramount power. They wanted that their power should be paramount, they should be ruling everywhere. So, a big British rule, which is also a part of their God, glory, and gold. Britishers were inspired by these three words. God is to spread Christianity. For that, they used to follow the missionary activities. Missionary activities were introduced, and these missionaries used to go to different parts of the world. Like when Portuguese came here in India, they were the first to reach India. So they started missionary activities, Christian schools, where they used to teach Christianity to natives, and they wanted natives to be converted. Glory is the power, British power, when the British Empire is rising more and more and spreading its arm. Gold is profit, profit by trade and commerce. They wanted silk, spices, cotton, calicos from India, and that is gold for them. That's why India was a golden land for them. So you need to understand these three terms: gold, God, glory, and gold. For what Britishers came to India. Okay? And they thought that if Britishers would be ruling everywhere, it will be like a peaceful society or a peaceful world where a peaceful law and order is there. Okay? Law and order and a very peaceful world, because Britishers would be ruling. So Britishers could do whatever is right for the nation, for the entire world. And that's why they were best to rule. So all these things are covered in the colonial approach. I hope you got it. Okay, this is your colonial approach. So we have covered the first approach, colonial approach. I hope it is clear. Everyone, if you have any doubts, please let me know. Colonial approach, done. Now we will come to the nationalist approach, which came as a response to the colonial approach. Nationalist approach, see, before modern Indian history or before the independence of India, these nationalist writers and authors used to follow ancient and medieval Indian history only. And they used to glorify the Indian past. But after independence, many authors started the study of modern Indian history and the European rule, the colonial rule, and they wanted to understand that why Europeans are comparing everything with Europe. Like they call Samudragupta as the Napoleon of India. Why? Why this comparison? Which is wrong, right? We should call Napoleon that he was the Samudragupta of Europe. It should be like that. Like they call Kalidas as the Shakespeare of India. Why Kalidas is Shakespeare? Kalidas is Kalidas. So why this comparison is there? Somehow Britishers always used to show that Indians are not fine. They are so uncivilized and so poor that they won't be able to, make any good arrangements for themselves. And that's why European rule is justified. So in the colonial rule, European rule was justified, but in the nationalist approach, it is not justified. They say that no, we will be very judgmental now. That why you came and looted us. So this is the answer of colonial approach, which is known as nationalist approach. Okay. Do you have any doubts from the colonial approach? First of all, let me just see if any doubts are there. Okay. Ankit, you have asked about the approach of history optional subject. I'll discuss that. Let me just complete all these approaches in short, and in the end, I'll discuss the book list for ancient, medieval, modern history with you, and I'll also discuss something for the history optional. Okay, don't worry, we will cover it. Now, let's come to the nationalist approach. I'll tell you the roadmap and the book list in the end of the class, because first of all, my focus is to cover the topic. I don't see any doubts from the colonial approach. You need to write clear in the comment section. If you'll write clear, then I'll know that okay, I need to proceed and the concept is clear. So, okay, fine. I just need to go to the next topic. Then only I'll jump to the new topic. So, if it is clear, then tell me in the comment section. Nationalist approach, we will start now. Those of you who are live for the very first time in the class, please like the video. You need to subscribe the channel, and you should know that we already having so many paid batches going on Sunya IAS. So there you can join me for modern Indian history. Okay. Now, nationalist approach. This is something which is going to be there, and I don't see any doubts till now. No doubts. Fine. Okay. Now let's come to the new approach. So we have R.C. Majumdar, we have Tara Chand, okay, and so many other, economists of the modern India at that time were there, like Dada Bhai Nauroji, M.G. Ranade, G.V. Joshi, R.C. Datta, Jawaharlal Nehru, G.K. Gokhale, R.C. Majumdar, A.C. Majumdar, Patta Bhai Sitaramaiya, all those nationalist leaders also wrote about the colonial rule, and they also used to discuss that how the drain of wealth is happening in India. So all these rulers, who came in India, like British rulers or the British governors who thought that they could rule India in a very good way, they used to impose a lot of policies. So the system of taxation, system of their governance was thought and written by many of the leaders in India. So before independence, as I discussed with you, this nationalist approach or this viewpoint, it was not there, because this particular section of historians, they used to deal with the ancient and medieval period only, not about the modern period. But after independence, they focused on the modern history. After independence, they understood the real problem, they understood the real meaning, and they followed the new set of point. Okay, so I discussed, for colonial approach, you need to remember two names, two writers, okay, James Mill and Vincent Smith. For nationalist approach, you can remember Tara Chand and R.C. Majumdar. That's it. Okay. So nationalist approach is saying that it is right that Britishers came to India and they started developments in India. They introduced railways, telegram services, and they also helped us in making the constitution. So, yes, the parliamentary system, the democracy, the unity, the nationalism, all those new concepts and modern political feelings and civil rights came in the minds of Indians just because of that British rule. But everything was with a selfish motive, and it was a kind of economic exploitation. So, if we ask you to repay the amount which you looted, you won't be able to give so. So, this is something you need to understand, that Indians were not uncivilized. Because when you say that Indians were uncivilized, you need to understand that you had same problems in Europe also. Europe was also going through a dark age in the medieval times, but we never question it, right? Europeans also had a dark age. The church dominance was there, where political power was suppressed by the theocracy of church. If we look at the European history, you see that in even the European history is divided into ancient history, medieval history, and modern history. In the ancient Europe, we had Greek and Roman empires, very big empires, important empire. They had an imperialist approach. They were imperial powers. And in 7th century, Roman Empire declined. After which the medieval European history starts, the medieval world history, in which we talk about the dark age, where church had dominance. And church used to think that if people will know about science and technology, they won't come to the church. They will not give donations to the church. All the land grants, donations, rights, and privileges given to the first estate or the church would be taken away. So let them not think about science and technology. Church used to control the minds of the people. So backward society was there. Feudalism was there in the 14th century. European society was going through a feudal crisis. The polity was guarded by feudalism. So that feudalism was economic exploitation. And then agriculture was also declining. There was no development at all. Then people started taking care of trade, commerce, and they wanted to revive their economy. And then in the modern world history, you see that Renaissance came. So Renaissance came in 14th and 15th century. So between 14th to 16th century, the period of Renaissance is there in Europe. After Renaissance, the Dark Age got ended and they had a new thought. It was a new birth, reawakening of the society when the humanism came into the picture, reasoning, logic, and science, technology, that progress was introduced. And it was with the help of monarchy. But before Renaissance, they had Dark Age. When Dark Age was there in Europe, India had a golden period. Like the Gupta age was a golden period for India. So if you compare the histories, you'll see that Indians were doing better than Europeans. We had a self-sufficient economy. Even Gandhiji used to call us that we should be Atmanirbhar, the way we were there in the ancient and medieval times. Even Modi ji today is saying Atmanirbhar Bharat. Why? Atmanirbhar or Make in India, Made in India, Startup India, Stand Up India. What is this? This is about the self-sufficient economy. We never used to import any essential goods from any other foreign country in India. For luxury, for taste, we used to import sweet wine, gold, and few precious stones. And for luxury and like just for a shock, you can say. है ना, shock बहुत बड़ी चीज होती है. It's just for a shock. But for survival, no. We had everything in India. And if you talk about the balance of trade, it was very positive. We had a very positive balance of trade. Balance of trade is, what is the balance between your imports and exports? So imports were very, very less, and we used to export a lot. It was a positive balance of trade. But nationalist approach, they say that the balance of trade became negative due to the colonial rule, due to the exploitation by the Britishers. So if you say, and if you try to justify the British rule as civilizing the natives, educating the nation, then you are wrong. We as a nationalist think that our nation is something because of our own Indians, because of our Indian leaders, because of freedom fighters. India became a nation because of our freedom fighters. It was not because of the British rule. No, you just inspired and gave us few ideas. But it could be by anyone. Like today, we have social media, right? And there are so many other ways to know about different worlds, different situations, and different type of problems. You can always see that what is going on there in Europe, in USA, what is going on between America and China. Is there any trade clash? Is there any problem internationally? So if you want to learn something and if you want to get inspired by something, the doors are always open for you. Okay, and if you want to teach something or if you want people to know something nice about you, then it's not important that you overpower the section of a society and make them suffer. No. So that's why nationalist approach is there. So RC Majumdar, Tara Chand, that is something which you can remember. These two right authors are important for us. Okay, then we come to the Marxist approach, like Karl Marx. Okay, he used to give, he used to talk about communism and socialism. So if you remember, Karl Marx, he had this point of view that whatever wrong is happening in the society is because of capitalism. He was against capitalism, always against capitalism, always. So even if I say that if you go by side of a road and you see that a lot of garbage is dumped openly near to a roadside, and if you'll ask Karl Marx that why it is so, isn't it so bad? Then Karl Marx will give you only one answer. This is because of capitalism. You can tell any problem in this world and he will relate it to the capitalism. So people who follow the ideas of Karl Marx or the Marxist point of view, they are against capitalism and they connect each and every problem with the capitalism ideology. So Marx says that this is not just a clash between Indian and Europeans. Okay, this contradiction is between the interests of colonial masters and subject people. Subject people means India. So it's an internal contradiction. And the internal contradiction is not just between the colonial masters and the subject people, it is also between the subjects and the people themselves, Indians themselves, because so many sections in Indian society also wanted to be industrialists and they used to approach business and they wanted to have a great trade and commerce in India. So we have so many authors like Rajni Palme Datta is there. Okay, Then R. Desai is there, who wrote Social Background of Indian Nationalism. Okay, so we have many writers and historians who talked and discussed about this Marxist approach. So this Marxist approach is against capitalism, and they connected the Indian nationalism, the national struggle of India also, as a interest, okay, as an interest group clashing with different interest group, okay. So it's a contradiction between the interests. Then we have subaltern approach. Subaltern approach is a very different point of view, which talks about poor people. Like if you read history, you'll, let's say we are reading about the Mughal period, so you'll know about Akbar. You'll you may discuss about Birbal also, but you will never understand the feeling of the poors. Like when Montagu Chelmsford reform came in India, and when uh, we had bicameral system in India, was there any benefit for the poor people? So subaltern approach and writers like Ranajit Guha, they say that why don't you talk about poor people, general public, masses? Here, for example, I just want you to understand it and think it like, if you compare the OTT platforms with general cinema, or generally if you watch a movie in theater and if you watch a movie on Netflix, do you see a difference? Like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Hotstar, Z5, so many OTT platforms are there. Do you see a very common thing behind the popularity of all these OTT platforms? In these platforms, they have stories related to masses. They are popular because they don't just talk about the superhero, luxury, fame, name, and a lot of action. Sometimes these glamorous things are not that important, and they are not so popular, right? It's like a restaurant food. The restaurant style food or the restaurant food is good, is very tasty, but you can't eat it every day. For daily life, for your day to day routine, you would like to have simple dal chawal, simple roti sabzi, right? Simple chapatis and homemade dishes are more fulfilling. So these OTT platforms became very popular because they used to talk about those stories related to the common masses, general public, general people. Life of a simple housewife, life of a simple, girl wanting to do something in life, or an ambitious boy struggling in his career. So these new small stories became very popular in OTT platform. People started liking it, people started subscribing it. So this is very much similar to the subaltern approach. Subaltern approach is saying, writers like Ranajit Guha, he's saying that whenever you read the history, you should have a perspective of common masses also, poor people also. You just don't ignore the fact that India is a country of peasants and so many groups, so many communities and diversities. You should not ignore that diversity. You should not ignore the problems of common masses, aspirations of common mass. So discuss that also. Okay, do you agree with it? Subaltern approach. See, this is not that important, but just understand. Okay. So sometimes even the subaltern approach, they criticize the leaders of Indian National Congress also, that they were elite people, they were elite Brahmins ruling the Indian National Congress. They never had a right mindset to perform for general public or introduce policies for poor people. Okay, so they criticize INC also. So that's why it is again very, very important. It's about the contradiction between the elites and poor people coming from general background. So here just remember the name Ranajit Guha. was a very important writer who started talking about this approach in a very popular way. Okay, subaltern approach. That's it. See, I told you that colonial and nationalist approach is only important for you. Other approaches are not that important. Now let's come to the communalist approach. Communalist approach. See, communalist सांप्रदायिकता संप्रदाय जहाँ एक संप्रदाय दूसरे संप्रदाय से लड़ रहा है. Okay, so communalist approach means one community is there and another community is there, and these two communities are fighting. They are always hostile against each other. They are hostile to each other. So basically, here we are talking about Hindus and Muslims, two most important communities of India. So in this approach, we see everything in a very communal way. They say that why Muslim League came, why the partition happened, why Pakistan was formed, why India after independence was not declared as a secular state, why the word secularism got added by an amendment later. So these questions are always there. So there in the communalist approach, they say that interests were always mutually different to each other, and Hindu Muslim interests are permanently hostile to each other. They're hostile groups. They see each other as you know, opponents or enemies sometimes. Religiously, they are enemies. They feel like my religion is right and only those principles are right which are given by my religion. So these problems are there. But you must understand that there is never a clash between religions. Basically, religions, they don't ask you to fight and do things against any religion. No, never. Any religious group, no religious group or no religious teaching is there to teach you the idea of communalism. They just want you to follow something, follow the path of goodness. But it's a contradiction among followers. Followers sometimes they misinterpret the religion in a very different way. They take the religious documents, textbooks in a very wrong way and interpret it according to their own mindset. And they spread the ideas or sometimes rumors in a very wrong way, due to which communal clashes, communal riots happen. Okay, so we don't have any substantial name of our author, but we can follow these kind of news and lectures given by different politicians when they give their speech. You see how they use the reli- you know religional politics as a religious politics as a vote bank for them. So there you will see this communalist approach. Now come to the Cambridge approach. Cambridge approach is the approach in which they say that basically India's freedom struggle is not just a struggle to get Indian independence. It is a struggle of power. Many Indian politicians and elite people groups wanted to rule, and they knew that if Britishers are there, then they won't be able to get any taxes, resources, or powers in India. So, to get the dominion or to get the political powers, they started fighting against Britishers. So, this fight is not between India and Britain. This fighting is not for independence. This fighting is for power, where powerful politicians wanted to be, there on high posts, started fighting against Britishers. So they were selfish. Jawaharlal Nehru was selfish that he wanted to be prime minister. And to become a prime minister, he wanted India to be independent. And that's why he started the fight against Britishers. It was just so that he can get the right. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he knew that in India, he might not become prime minister in near future. But if he can follow the Muslim League and make Pakistan as a separate dominion, he will become prime minister. So that's why he started. the communal politics. So this is something in which the clash of power or for power is shown. This is known as Cambridge approach or Cambridge school, which says about the contradiction. Under the colonial rule, it was among the Indians themselves. Cambridge school is saying that the fight is not for independence, the fight is for power, the fight is for supremacy, the fight is for more and more power. Okay, so this is all about greed and power of Indians. Okay, I hope you understood it. There is nothing to talk about in this Cambridge school also. Now come to the liberal and neoliberal approach. The liberal and neoliberal approach says that when Britishers came to India, they wasted a lot of time. They wasted a lot of time in India, and that's why the development was delayed in Britain due to this problem. Why? Because they were so focused in India and to suppress the revolts in India, to take care of the polity in India, that they were not able to get some focus in their own internal politics or on their own country. So Britishers got busy and disturbed due to this colonialism, and that's why the modern development was delayed in Britain and it could not become a superpower after the world wars. Like you see, that the First World War between Germany and Britain was there, in which Britain got the victory. But in the Second World War, it was ended by USA by bombarding Hiroshima and Nagasaki on Japan. So you see that USA will be a superpower. Why? Because USA followed the policy of isolation. USA followed the policy of isolation, focusing on oneself, not getting involved in the international politics and contradictions, rumors. USA wanted its economy to be empowered, undisturbed. So that undisturbed, focused development was needed in Britain. But Britain was always disturbed due to the colonies. So colonial rule was not beneficial for Britain. It is said by which approach? Liberal approach or neoliberal school. Okay, which says that it was not fine. So I hope you got the point. This is again not very important, so no need to go into the details. Liberal approach says that this economic exploitation of the colonies was not beneficial for Britishers, and India was a source of raw material and market. So, a lot of investments in India was done and not in Britain because Britishers wanted to capture the resources of India. So, hence, it delayed the development of new small industries in Britain and so many other middle industries in Britain, and Britain could not become a superpower. We have many proponents here again, like Hopkins and Kane. So, just remember these two names. Authors like Hopkins and Kane, who followed the liberal and neoliberal approach. Now, feminist approach, in which the women empowerment is discussed. So they say that when you read modern Indian history, why don't you talk about the women? Why do you ignore the role of women in the independence of India? It should not be like that. We should always talk about the women, the role of women in the independence. Okay, so like Pandit Ramabai, he wrote about upper class Hindu women, upper caste Hindu women, in which she used to discuss the misery faced by the upper caste Hindu women, because upper caste women, they are more in restrictions than the lower caste women. Because lower caste women and the section which is very very poor, they have less restrictions imposed on women because economically it's not sustainable for them. So they take help from women also. They ask women to go out, work uh, as a labor or a peasant, so that she can earn something for the family. Okay, so they are more empowered. They could learn few new skills in the modern times, not about the ancient and medieval Indian history. It's about the modern Indian history. So in the modern Indian history, you see that so many women participated in the mass movements. Like if you talk about the Dandi March by Gandhi ji, so many women came and they, did that Dandi March with. So yes, that is again very important. We should discuss it. So Pandit Ramabai is an example here who used to follow this feminist approach, and we have so many other examples like in Anand Math also. We see that how the depiction of sannyasi revolt is there. So we had so many novels and different writers, male writers, female writers, who discussed about this feminist point of view and who wanted to discuss the role of women. And they also talk about the social atrocities and the denial of ownership against the women. Like women never got the rights in property, land, home, and they were always suppressed. They never got any separate electorate or representation. Later on, when they started getting it, it was not that successful because the education and skill was not there. So yes, these, you know things are there. Like Catherine Mayo is also a very important example. Pandit Ramabai is example, which you can discuss in the exam. However, these two chapters were not that important. We covered it, that's it. Okay, we don't need to discuss more. We have covered the first chapter and second chapter very nicely and clearly. So we can move ahead with the new one, with chapter number 3. But I just want you to understand here that these two chapters were not that important. Okay, only a brief discussion was needed. So you just need to remember the meaning of approach and the name of authors or proponents who used to follow the approach. That's it. Nothing else is needed. Okay, that would be enough. Fine. Any doubts? Let me just see if there is any doubt. Okay, it's working fine, I hope. Yes. So, how is it going, guys? I hope you guys are not tired and we can do the chapter number 3 also. Are you ready for the chapter number 3? How many of you are ready for it and not tired? Tell me. If you guys are ready, we can start the third chapter also. Okay, fine. So, as I promised that after completing these two chapters, I'll discuss the book list, sources, roadmap to study the history, and also I'll discuss something for the optional. Okay, so let me just discuss that before we start this new lesson, new chapter. Okay, a small discussion should be there that how should you approach the modern Indian history. If you don't know the book list, if you don't have the idea, let me just tell you name of few books and sources, after which we will discuss chapter number 3, arrival of Europeans. Okay, give me 2 minutes to give you a right book list. So guys, for general studies, GS prelims and mains, understand that the first book which you should read to start the journey of your history is Tamil Nadu history book. Tamil Nadu history book, Tamil Nadu board history book of class 11th and 12th, and prefer the new edition. Okay, if you can get the new edition, that would be best, because ancient history, medieval history, and briefly modern Indian history with art and culture is covered in the Tamil Nadu history book. So you should start your journey from here only. when you want to start the preparation for history UPSC. Okay. Now, second is, once you cover the Tamil Nadu history of class 11th and 12th, what you can do is you can start with the modern history, for which spectrum, fine. But for mains, you need to cover world history and post independence. Post independence and world history will be covered by two books, which I'll tell you, but it is only for the mains. World history will not come in prelims, and post independence will not come in prelims. These two will come in GS paper 1 in main. So, for world history, you can follow the material of Sunya IAS or any coaching material or book in which a brief, you know, coverage of modern world history is there, because you don't need to read it in detail, because first of all, a lot of questions are not coming from world history, and it is only in mains. There is no connection of modern world history with uh, prelims history question, but it is important to cover it because it will give you a good idea of international relations, diplomacy, the polity and governance which you read today. Even for your modern Indian history, it is important. So, world history you can't ignore, but don't invest a lot of time in it. Only one book would be fine, or you can watch my course also. Now, for post independence, Bipin Chandra is a nice book. Bipin Chandra, India After Independence, is fine. You can just read that. That would be enough. Okay, generally we cover it from spectrum, but in spectrum also the post independence is not given in a very detailed way. So, world history and post independence could be covered by uh, coaching materials, or you can follow Bipin Chandra for post independence. Now, see, basically, if you want to read world history in detail, you can follow B.V. Rao, Arjun Dev, or any other book. But I don't want to follow. I don't want you to follow any bulky material. Just follow a, you know, crash course or a small booklet coaching material to complete it briefly and quickly. Then, for art and culture, you can read Nitin Singhania. That is again very important for prelims, because you know that so many questions are coming in exam from art and culture. So please cover it from Nitin Singhania. Okay. So ancient, medieval, modern, post-independence, world history, art and culture, everything is discussed. If you talk about NCRTs, that should be your base. So before starting any standard book, you should complete the NCRTs. And to cover NCRTs, follow NCRTs from 6th to 12th, new NCRTs, and here the for 11th, old NCRT is better, only for 11th one, because either you can follow old NCRT for class 11th, or you can follow R.S. Sharma and Satish Chandra. Okay, so in old NCRT we used to have R.S. Sharma and we used to have Satish Chandra. But in case you are not able to find the old NCRT, don't worry, because these writers have their own books published now. Okay, by Oxford publication you'll be getting it, and by some other publication you'll get Satish Chandra also. So separately you can buy it from Amazon. R.S. Sharma for ancient history, Satish Chandra for medieval history, and that would be fine enough. Okay, so first you can just, number one, step one is read Tamil Nadu history book, then complete all your NCRTs, then modern history, world history, and art and culture, like this. Art and culture could be understood only if you have covered Tamil Nadu history book. Otherwise, Nitin Singhania will be very informative and very boring for you. Okay, the reason why history becomes boring is when so many facts are there and you feel like uh, why problem is there. Now let's come to the next important fact, which was about the optional. See guys, those of you who are preparing for history optional, they can follow the material which I'll give you at Sunya. That would be enough for you. Very soon we are starting the history optional classes. But for optional, you need to have a advanced book list. Okay. So you can follow few important materials there. The IGNU material is very nice. You can follow that for optional. And I have already discussed it in my few of the videos, that how can you prepare, for the optional. So for optional, a different video is going to be there. There I'll discuss the book list separately. This is a GS class, so here we will just discuss the GS. Now coming to the chapter number 3. I hope you have seen that in your book. Chapter number 3 is about the arrival of Europeans, right? Now, before we discuss the arrival of Europeans, I want you to understand this map. This is Constantinople. Constantinople is Istanbul, today's Istanbul, which is in Turkey. So, Istanbul is in mid of the world. Can you see the world map? And can you see the location of Istanbul, Constantinople? It's in between the world. It's like a connecting point of entire world, as if the entire world would be coming here again and again for the exchange of goods, for exchange of people, ideas. Now, if you understand the importance of this location, you should know that this area of Constantinople came under the rule of Ottoman Empire in 1453. So this date is very important when you start reading modern Indian history. First of all, modern Indian history is not modern at all. Calling it modern Indian history is wrong. Again, it is a colonialist approach that we call it modern Indian history. Okay? Because Europeans initially wrote the history of India for their own better understanding and sequencing. They used to compare everything with Europe. In India, whatever they used to write or think, they used to compare it with the Europe. Now, in Europe, when modern world started and the modern history started, they call it modern world history or modern European history. Similar time frame is known as modern Indian history in India, but it is not modern for India because we were struggling for the freedom, for independence. We had poverty, tribals, their lands were getting confiscated, peasants were taxed unnecessarily, and we had famines. We had millions of people dying daily. So that poverty and unemployment and such a problematic situation could never be a modernist for us. That's not modern. When you hear this word modern, what comes to your mind? Modern means new ideas, new technology, education, empowerment, good international relations, good human values, development in each and every sphere of life. That is modern, right? So, here understand that calling it modern is just a wrong notion, but we call it just because it is a colonial approach and it's a kind of a fashion followed by the world and world history. That's why we call it modern history. So 1453 is a very important date in the study of modern history of India because, however, it is not directly connected to India, but it had a very high level of indirect impact and historical consequence in the history of India. So basically, when Ottoman Empire captured the part of Constantinople in 1453, it captured all the important land routes and sea routes coming to India, which used to connect Europe with India. So, how many connecting points are there? You see that we had Malacca here, we had Aden here, and we had Ormuz here. Okay, so these three coastal lands or coastal points, Aden, Ormuz, and Malacca, used to connect Indian Ocean with different trade routes. And if Europeans see, look at this map, Europe is here, and if let's say Constantinople is not under the control of Europeans, and Italians were also not supporting the other European states in any kind of trade and commerce, because Italy also wanted to have profit for its own reasons. Look at the map. Here you see there is a route from Red Sea. This is Red Sea. So if anyone wants to come from Europe to India, the Red Sea route is still there. So they could easily come here and they can follow Red Sea and reach Gujarat very easily. Then from Baghdad also you see, if you want to come, you can follow a land route, come to Baghdad, and easily via Sindh, you can reach India from Europe, right? These routes are so easy. If you remember the Silk Route, in like since the ancient times, we had a Silk Route, right? So land route was also there. Silk Route was already there. So we had Silk Route, we had the Red Sea route, we had the route via Baghdad. Then why Europeans are not using these old routes, and why are they in discovery of a new route? Why the new route is needed? Why? Question is why? Why can't they just use the old routes? The reason is that all these old routes after the 1453 Constantinople falling under the Ottoman Turks, after the rise of Ottoman Turks or the Ottoman Empire, Muslim Empire, this area was blocked for Europe. Now, this area is blocked by the Sultan of Egypt, Arabia, and other Muslim powers. So these Muslims, these rulers, and these Muslim traders in middle, they became Muslim intermediaries. So in case France want to buy anything from India, let's say Indian cotton or Indian spices, France will ask these Muslim intermediaries to buy it from India, and then these Muslim intermediaries will get it and will go to the European coast. This is a coast, Venice. It was there in Italy. So they will go to the Venice coast or Geneva coast in Italy. They will hand over it to Italians, and Italians will give it to France. So here you see that so many middlemen are there. And the problem is that if France, Spain, Portugal, Britishers, any of them, if they want anything from India, they could only get it through these Muslim intermediaries who blocked all the land and sea routes, old land and sea routes already existing for the world trade. So it's a story of connection between East and West. Okay, it's a connection between what? Here we have East and here we have West. West wants Eastern goods. East means India, Asia, okay, other Asian countries. West means America, France, England, okay, Portugal, Spain, Germany, West. So, West, East, they wanted to have a connection. Now, the question is, you must have heard that saying कि कुआं जो है वो कभी प्यासे के पास नहीं जाता, right? If you are in need, then you will come. If you want something, then you will work for it. You will go for it. Indians will never try to go and reach Europe. Indians are not interested in Europe. Indians are not interested in America. Okay, we are talking about modern Indian history. I'm not talking about today's time, because see, today so many youngsters have a policy of brain drain in their mind, and if they could settle down in foreign countries, they go there for education, business, and settling down. We have so many Indians living in Europe and America, but I'm not talking about this lifestyle. I am talking about the time, modern Indian history time, which Indians were self sufficient. So, as Indians are self sufficient, they are not in need of going anywhere. They are happy, they are self sufficient, they are having their own fulfilled life, they are happy, they follow their own tradition. So, they have their own resources and rules. Now, the problem was that the Egyptian Sultan, the Sultan from Persia, the Sultan from Arabia, these Muslim intermediaries, they blocked the connection. They simply blocked all the sea routes and land routes coming to eastern sides from Europe. So now Europeans, they decided to go with a new route. So first of all, in search of a new route, they wanted to have some patronage from the kings. So the king of Portugal is very, very important. Okay? Prince Henry, who also got a nickname of Navigator, he sponsored many traders and travelers to discover the new sea. Now the question is, why Prince Henry and other rulers supported this idea, and why were they so interested in sponsoring new traders and uh, travelers like this? The reason is, Europe during Dark Age was already very, very suppressed, and the monarchy in Europe wanted power, wanted dominance. To get power, profit, and dominance, it was important to encourage new commercial activities, discoveries, and inventions. However, they knew that new science and technological development is never liked by the church. Church was dominating, and church used to say that no, nothing should be against the religion. They had a religious constitution. Okay, so now monarchy wanted to have more power than church. They wanted more resources and profit than church. And they knew that people really want to go out of this limited European world and boundaries. They understood the popular feeling, and monarchy started sponsoring it. Like Queen Elizabeth I, she also sponsored this idea. Okay? Prince Henry, why he became navigator? Because he had this obsession to find new routes, to make new maps, to get new areas in the world. So that's why these rulers, to get more power and profit, started sponsoring new companies. And new companies, they used to get charters. They used to get right to do the trade with monopoly. Now, they, as they are not having any of the connection with the old routes, because Muslim intermediaries are in between, they will discover the new routes. One more reason is, this is not just about power and profit, this is also about Islam and Christianity. These Muslim intermediaries who are here in Egypt and Arabia, they want Islam to rise, because after the decline of Roman Empire in 7th century, we see that Islam came in picture, and the rise of Islam happened. With the Ottoman Empire, the rise was again very much increasing, and it was at its peak. So it is a fight between Islam and Christianity also, because Europeans used to follow Christianity and they wanted to spread Christianity. So they had a religious zeal. So it's a religious zeal between Muslim intermediaries and Europeans. Muslim intermediaries want to spread Islam. Europeans want to spread Christianity. Muslim intermediaries, they already came in India and they already had access. Because if you read the Arab conquest of Sindh, Arab conquest of Sindh happened in 712 AD. So Arabs started from Sindh area. So initially they came to Sindh, then they came to Punjab, and then they captured Delhi. So then Delhi Sultanate got started in the 12th century AD in India. Then Mughal Empire came, right? So if you read the history of Delhi Sultanate, you will understand that already Muslim intermediaries and Muslim rulers got the power from the time of 712 AD, because Arab conquest of Sindh was already there in the medieval times, and they captured many of the parts in North India. Okay, so they were already, going, they were already moving ahead. And in comparison, if you see, Europeans were not in that direct connection. So now the Europeans were like, okay, we also want to spread Christianity. So it's a religious clash. And they used to hate Muslims. They used to hate Muslim intermediaries. First of all, if they used to buy anything for 10 rupees from India, these Muslim intermediaries used to sell it in 50 rupees to Europeans. So Europeans never got profit. They wanted to maximize their profit. They wanted to get cheaper products. And to get cheaper products without any middlemen, they had to find a new sea route. And they also wanted to spread Christianity. So that's why we call it God, glory, and gold. Okay? God, glory, and gold. This is the reason. Okay, now you have already understood that why these Muslims were blocking the route and how they got a kind of monopoly on all the land and sea routes already existing. So that's why when Europeans will come to India, like first of all, Portuguese, they initiated this discovery. So Vasco da Gama was the first one to reach Calicut. He was there in 1498. So you will see that Portuguese, they will send their governors. And there was a person, Francisco de Almeida. He was a Portuguese governor, and he started a new policy. It is known as blue water policy. He understood that it's not about capturing more and more land. If you capture Indian Ocean and if you monopolize Indian Ocean, if you just control the Indian Ocean, then there is no need to capture lands and there is no need to get worried. So don't worry about India. You should worry about the water. So that's why he started blue water policy. Blue water policy by Francisco de Almeida is what? Capture Aden, Ormuz, and Malacca. And it was more empowered under the rule of next governor, Albuquerque, Alfonso de Albuquerque. Because what he will do, he will start a permit system that if any ship, Chinese ship, or any ship coming to Indonesia or Africa or Egypt, if they pass from this area of Indian Ocean, they will need to have permission. He started a permit system that you need to give us a tax. Like you pay toll taxes today when you cross a national highway. Similarly, they started a permit system here that if you don't want us to capture your ships and attack on you or stop your ships, then you just pay the tax, because Portuguese are having a permit system in the Indian Ocean. So you will see that one by one new rulers and new governors will come. Now the story starts with the Portuguese because they were the first Europeans to reach India and last one to leave India. Okay, so look at this particular map here. You can see this map here and you can see Portugal. I just want you to understand that initially at that time in the world, we had two mafias. Okay, we had two mafias of the world, Spain and Portugal. Okay, so Portugal and Spain. Look at this map, very, very important. Portugal and Spain, they both used to clash and fight among themselves to become superpower, to rule the world. Okay, so they always used to fight among themselves. So Portuguese and Spanish, when they used to fight again and again, ultimately they decided that it's just a waste of time. There is no need to fight like this. In this way, we will lose everything. So let's have a treaty to divide the non Christian world into two parts. Treaty was known as the Treaty of Tordesillas, in which from the Cape of Verde Island, they made an imaginary line on the Atlantic Ocean and divided the non Christian world into two parts. So, Portugal, they got to go in the eastern side, and Spanish, they got to go on the western side. By the Treaty of Tordesillas, it was decided that Portuguese can go in the eastern world and Spanish can go in the western world. So, Spain will be focused in this side and they will explore the western part of the world, and Portuguese will go to this side. So, you will see that many travelers came here, like Bartholomew Diaz was the one who was the first one to, get the route till this particular part to reach India. But with the help of Indian monsoon and with the help of so many other travelers, they were able to discover the route. Initially, so many travelers came, but they could not reach till the Indian coastal lands because they had no way after reaching the point of southernmost tip in this South Africa. Because you see, if you are here, then you have no idea that what is next. In the ocean, you don't see any way. So Abdul Majid was a Gujarati pilot who helped Vasco da Gama in 1498 to reach India, and they reached Calicut where Zemurin was there. Zemurin or Samutri was the ruler of Calicut who welcomed Vasco da Gama, and he was like, okay, now this new traveler is here in our country. And at that time, even today, we have a feeling of welcoming people. Indians are always very welcoming. We like new people, we like new exposure, and we have a mindset which is very open. So Zemurin welcomed Vasco da Gama in a very nice way, and it was just because of that Gujarati pilot Abdul Majid who helped Vasco da Gama. And once Vasco da Gama reached here, he got so many Indian products, and when he went away, when he went back to Europe, he sold it at 60 times profit. So it was a very amazing experience for him that he could make 60 times higher profit. And then he came back again, opened factory, had a clash with had a clash with Zemurin, and so many political problems and internal problems got started. But ultimately, you will see that Portuguese will defeat the Muslim intermediaries and know, Arabic rulers by their ship powers, by their shipping techniques. They had cannons on their ships. And in this area around the Red Sea, the problem is that in these areas, uh, good timber production was not there. So they had no timber. No timber means no shipping industry, because timber is a very important wood. Problem is now clear. I gave you an important introduction. See, I don't want anyone to miss anything in the topic. That's why I want to start this entire chapter number 3 with you in the next class. But This map was important to make you understand the real reasons why the discovery of new sea route was there, which is now very, very clear. So tomorrow we are starting the chapter number 3. We will start from this particular map. Okay, you have a good understanding and a introduction of modern Indian history in your mind. So I hope it would be helpful for you. And be on time, 8 o'clock. I will be live. And in case you have any doubts, you can ask me in the comment section. Please let me know if there is anything you want to discuss. I can see the comments, so please let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and please share it with your friends, because the more views are going to be there, the more you share it, it will enthusiasm to come live regularly and finish the chapters as nicely, as quickly as possible. Okay, so the team will be energized to make good content for you. We will be very happy create and spread more and more knowledge for you, and it will only come with a like, because it's a free lecture series. So all we expect is like and comment from your side. Okay, so you need to share it, like it, and let me know in case there is any doubt. Yes, Abhishek, you have written a question. Cartas system is permit system only. Okay, Cartas system was the permit system only, in which they used to tax all the ships. Okay, fine. I can see that there are no other doubts here. I can see that questions are not there. So, fine. I'll end the session here for you. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. See you then. Take care. Bye bye.